session 6 of our DevOps Bootcamp, November 29, 2025, Saturday. Then, 1 to 6 p.m. about the course for today. Uh, we will tackle about Ansible, CI/CD with AWS, containers including Docker and microservices, and then after that is an exercises. Next slide, we have here the Ansible fundamentals. So in this session, we are going to dive in this Ansible fundamentals. We're going to tackle what Ansible is and why it is used, Ansible architecture, inventory basics, YAML essentials, ad hoc commands, playbooks, variables, facts and conditionals, and then rules, best practices, and templates like Jinja 2, and then error handling and debugging, and also Ansible Galaxy. Let's start from what is Ansible. So Ansible is an open source automation platform that help us manage systems at scale instead of manually logging into servers and configuring things one by one. So Ansible allow us to automate those tasks in a consistent, repeatable way. Ansible is primarily used for three things like configuration management, application deployment, and overall orchestration. So meaning it can coordinate complex workflows across multiple servers. So in in here we have the meaning of Ansible, used for configuration management, application deployment, and IT orchestration. No agents required here. It communicates via SSH or WinRM. And then uses simple human readable YAML to define automation. And it is idempotent, which means running the same automation multiple times produces the same results. In Ansible, you don't need to be a programmer to understand or write Ansible playbooks. The syntax is straightforward and easy to learn. Finally, Ansible is idempotent, which means you can run the same playbook over and over again, and Ansible will only make changes if they are needed, and that prevents mistakes, reduces risk, and ensures our system stay consistent by using this Ansible. So next we have here is the Ansible architecture diagram. We have here the Ansible architecture diagram. So in here we have, let's walk through this diagram so you can clearly understand how Ansible operates behind the scenes. So starting on the left, we have the Ansible architecture. Everything begins from the control node, which is shown at the top of the right hand side here. Control node where Ansible commands and playbook run. So in control node, this is where the Ansible lives. This is the machine where we install Ansible, write our playbooks, and execute all automation commands. Nothing gets installed on the remote machines. Everything is controlled from this single point. Then next we have the managed nodes. These nodes are the remote servers that Ansible connects to. They can be Linux servers or even Windows servers or cloud instances. So Ansible communicates with them using an SSH or WinRM. And the key benefits is there's no agent required. The managed nodes don't need any special software installed. So the third one is the inventory. So inventory is a list of hosts and groups. It's simply a file or a source of truth that contains a list of all the hosts Ansible will manage. You can group your systems based on their purpose. For example, in this inventory are like web servers, database servers, those that you need in production, staging, and so on. So the inventory tells Ansible where to run our tasks. Then the fourth one are ito, magkasama, modules and plugins. So in modules is the actions Ansible performs. So modules are the actual building blocks of Ansible automation, and they are small reusable units of work. So for example, a module can install a package, create users, configure files, or manage services. So every task in a playbook uses a module behind the scenes. And the fifth one is the plugins, wherein it is the for extend functionality. So plugin extends Ansible's behavior, things like how connections work, so how inventory is gathered, how output is formatted, or how tasks are queued. So you typically don't modify plugins yourself, but they help plug Ansible stay flexible and powerful. So overall, in this diagram shows the flow of how Ansible functions. The control node sends tasks to the manage nodes. Then there is an inventory which keeps tracks of the host. Then there is a module perform the actual actions and plugins that make the systems more adaptable. So, understanding this architecture is the foundation of everything that we can do here in Ansible. So, if you have an interview, if you have a DevOps interview, this is one of the question that typically asks, what is Ansible? You should elaborate what is control node, manage node, inventory, modules and plugins if you want to apply as a DevOps engineer in a company. So next we have the YAML basics for Ansible. We already tackled YAML last sessions. So I will just repeat it. YAML is a key value structure. It promotes a strict indentation rules, spaces, not tabs. So we have here the list versus dictionaries, variables in YAML, like variable name. So here is a example of a YAML file. So we say YAML siya is built on simple key value pairs. So yung key is the name, the item you're defining, and the value is whatever you're assigning to it. So for example, we have here the Nginx. Here we have the Nginx and the state is present. You'll see this pattern everywhere in Ansible task modules or variables. Everything uses this key value pairs. And it follows a indentation rules, which is the most important rule in YAML, indentation. And then YAML doesn't use brackets or commas. It's in like JSON or programming languages. Instead, indentation determines the structure and hierarchy. Every time something belongs inside another block, it must be indented. Then see YAML then it uses spaces, not only spaces, but never tabs. So any indentation mistakes will cause Ansible to fail. So its uses it must be being precise. So it's worth to being precise. So kapag nga sinabing list versus dictionaries, YAML uses two main data structures, which is a dictionary, a collection of key value pairs. For example, when you use the app module, everything under it like name or state and so on, it forms a dictionary. And a list, itong list na to is a collection of items marked with a dash. Tasks are perfect example. So every task starts with a dash. You'll also see things. You'll also see lists and things like packages or host group. So understanding when something should be a list and when it should be a dictionary is key to reading and writing Ansible playbooks. So next naman is here in variables in YAML. So YAML in Ansible also supports variables which make our automation dynamic. Variables are written using double curly braces like this. We can pull we can pull variables from the inventory from variable files or from packs that Ansible gathers automatically. So using variables keeps your playbooks flexible and reusable. So next, so yun nga yung example. Simple YAML example. If you guys try to create a YAML file based dun sa mga last session natin, uh, inulit ko lang itong YAML basics na to. I hope you learn last sessions about YAML and JSON, so you can relate on every topic that we will tackle in this module or in another sessions. Then next is we have the inventory basics. So in Ansible, we have the inventory basics, ENI, and YAML inventory formats. It is a grouping of host, ad hoc commands like web, db, prod, dev, and host variables and group variables, dynamic inventory like house EC2, cloud aware inventories. So, so say inventory is essential in order to list the system that Ansible will manage. So everything Ansible does is start with the inventory because this file uh, tells Ansible which servers to run tasks on. For example, is the ANI YAML inventory formats. So Ansible supports multiple inventory formats, but the two most common are ANI and YAML. In here, we have the example. The ENI format is the traditional and simplest format. You just list your host under group names. So it looks like this, web servers, then 192.168 yung IP address. Then in YAML format, it is more structured and modern. It's useful when you need more complex configurations or nested variables. So both formats work, and you'll see them used depending on the project, like grouping hosts, for example, is web, db, prod, and dev. So one of the most powerful features of the inventory is the ability to group hosts. You can group machines by their functions, like web servers, database servers, or by environments like production, staging or development. And grouping allows you to run certain playbooks on only the machines that need them. So, for example, you could install Nginx only on the web group and configure MySQL only on the DB group. So, this makes automation precise and organized. So, host variables and group variables are needed. Next is dynamic inventory here. Dynamic inventory. So in dynamic inventory, especially as EC2 instances. So Ansible also support this dynamic inventory, which is extremely useful in cloud environments. Instead of manually listing servers in a file, Ansible can automatically pull an up-to-date list of machines from providers like AWS, EC2, uh, Azure, GCP, and others. And this means you can scale up or down EC2 instances. And Ansible always has the latest host information. So in AWS, for example, Ansible can filter by tags such as all instances, tag as web or prod, or this make cloud automation far more flexible and accurate. So in summary, the inventory tells Ansible who to manage groups. In summary, the inventory tells Ansible who to manage groups. Let us target uh let's us target different kinds of servers, variables, allow customization and dynamic inventories. Keep everything in sync with the cloud. So understanding inventories is essential because every playbook depends on accurate host targeting. So, isa siya sa important item when you are learning Ansible. For me, mahirap aralin si Ansible. Hindi rin siya kaya ng isang session like this para siyang Terraform. Pag meron kayong skills like Ansible and Terraform, pwedeng-pwede na kayong mag-apply as a DevOps engineer in a company. Kasi hanap to lagi na skills ng mga recruiter or ng client. So next is we have the ad hoc commands. So an ad hoc commands, it is a quick one-liner for simple tasks. It is great for testing and one-off actions. It runs directly from the command line. No playbook required. Just a simple commands like this. So for example is Ansible or dash m ping. For installing packages, Ansible web dash m yum dash a, then name HTTPD state equals present. And in order to restart services, we have Ansible all dash m service dash a, then yung name nung halimbawa nginx, then state is restarted. Then run shell commands like this, Ansible all dash m shell dash a, then uptime. Yun lang yung sa ad hoc commands. Then, next, we have this diagram. So, let's walk through in this diagram so you can clearly understand how ad hoc commands work in Ansible. So, on the left, we start with the control node. So, this is the computer where Ansible is installed, and it is where we run all of our automation commands. Nothing runs directly on the managed servers. So, everything starts right here from the control machine, from the control node, we can execute a one-liner command like the one shown in the yellow here, like Ansible or dash mping. So this is an example of an ad hoc commands. So these commands are meant for quick, simple tasks that don't require creating a full playbook. It is just used for testing the connectivity or performing one-off operations. So, si Ansible is the command itself. All tells Ansible to target every host in the inventory. So, si dash m ping specifies the module we want to run. In this case, the ping module, which checks the Ansible that can connect to each server, not whether the server responds to a ICMP ping. So once we run this command, si Ansible, it sends the instruction from the control node across the network to the managed nodes. So shown on the right side of the diagram. So each of these servers receive the module over SSH. So no agents or additional software are installed on these machines. So they only need to be reachable. So the arrows in this diagram represent the Ansible communicates or communication with all of these servers in parallel. So it doesn't go one server at a time. It executes tasks efficiently across multiple machines at once. So each managed node runs the module, performs the action, and then sends the results back to the control node. Paulit-ulit lang yan. Then this allows us to quickly see which hosts are reachable, see which hosts are succeeded, and whether any failed. So overall, this flow shows how easy it is to use a Ansible for past actions. In just running a command on the control node, Ansible pushes it out to all managed nodes, so they respond that quickly. So this is why ad hoc commands are so useful for quick tests, installs, restarts, or running shell commands across many servers at the same time. Next, we have the Ansible playbook. So this is a common question if you are applying as a DevOps engineer, may itatanong yung sina recruiter if nakarating na kayo dun sa parang pinaka last stage ng interview. Pag yung manager na ang magtatanong sa inyo, what is Ansible playbook? Need nyong masagot yan. So, playbooks are where we defined our automation in a structured, repeatable, and organized way. If ad hoc commands are quick one-liners, then playbooks are the full recipes that describe everything we want to configure on our servers. So the core structure here is the play, task, and then modules. A playbook is made up of one or more plays. So a play defines which host we want to target. For example, all web servers or all database servers. Inside each play, we have a list of tasks. Tasks are individual steps that Ansible will run in order. Examples of tasks is installing a package, starting a service, creating a file, or deploying a template. And each task uses a module. So, module uh, are the actual units of work. They do the real actions. So the flow is play, task, modules. So this structure makes playbook simple to understand and maintain. So let's break down some key components you'll see in most playbooks. So for example, meron ba dito? Yan, ito. Halimbawa, we have host. Si host, it tells the Ansible which group or machine should the task uh, run. So, si task naman, siya yung list of actions to perform handlers. So, special tasks that only run when notified, usually used for things like restarting a service after a configuration. Handlers help avoid unnecessary restarts, which is one of the reasons Ansible is so efficient. So, one of the best thing playbook is idempotency, which means that when a task runs, the Ansible, it checks whether the system already matches the desired state. So, for example, if a task says install Nginx, Ansible will only install if it is missing. So, if it's already installed, Ansible won't touch it. So, this protects your system from accidental changes and makes automation safe to run repeatedly. So, common modules na makikita niya is yung app na mga command app, YAM, service file, template user. So, Playbook use modules to actually perform work. Some of the most common modules that you'll use include yung app get, yung YAM install, yan, mga halimbawa is yung service, start, stop, enable, restart services. Then if file, you need to create directories, set permissions, manage files. And then for template, if you need to deploy Jinja 2 base configuration files. And then also user, which create or modify system users. So there are hundreds of modules available that Ansibles use that you need to do step by step. So they target a specific host, run organized tasks, and uses modules to perform actions and stay safe by being idempotent. So playbooks are really the heart of Ansible automation. Ito yung parang pinaka-brain ng Ansible automation. Dapat maalam pa yung gumawa ng Ansible playbook. So in Ansible, using variables, we have reuse values across tasks. So access with variable underscore name, it defined in playbooks. Sa playbooks na gamit ng mga variables, inventory, host, underscore vars, group underscore vars, external var files, and for packs at automatically gathered system info, examples is OS type, IP, host name, memory, and then access using Ansible underscore packs, then yung OS family niya underscore Ansible underscore host name. Ganun siya i-define. Next. So in Ansible, So Ansible becomes more dynamic, flexible, and intelligent. Instead of hard coding everything, we let Ansible adapt based on the environment and the data it collects. So using variables in playbooks, it allows to customize behavior without rewriting our playbook. So we define them once and we can reuse them across multiple tasks or hosts. So in here, variables are written using double curly braces, and also these variables can come from many places inside the playbook, from inventory files, from group variables, host variables, or external variables. So the key point is that variables make playbooks reusable and cleaner, and they prevent us from repeating values all over the file. Then ito namang si Pax, siya yung parang pieces of information about each managed system. So things like the OS type, host name, and so on. This happens at the start of every play. Unless you disable it, you can reference these packs the same way as variables. So, for example, ito ang Ansible underscore packs. Ito. Or ito. So, packs are incredibly powerful because they let your playbooks adapt automatically based on the machine they're running on. For example, is by using YAM on Red Hat systems and app on Debian systems when conditions for logic. So once we have variables and facts, we can start using conditionals. Ito, pasuktong yan. So in conditionals naman, it used to run tasks only when conditions are met. Then, Ansible, facts, equals Debian. Dapat na-met niya yon. So, si conditionals turn a static playbook into a smart decision-making workflow. Then, kapag naman sinabing register output, it store module results for later use. So, like this, in this YAML, command system ctl status nginx register nginx status. So, this allow playbooks to react to real system states and make intelligent decisions. So, in summary, variables let us reuse values. Facts let Ansible understands each system, while conditionals let us apply logic, and register let Ansible make decisions based on actual command output. So these features are what turns Ansible into a powerful automation engine that adapts to different environments. Next is in Ansible we have let's talk about roles. So, which represent one of the best practices in Ansible. So, roles help keep your automation organized, modular, and reusable. So, especially as your playbooks grow in size, when you start automating it have a more complex systems, having everything in one large playbook, it quickly becomes hard to manage. So roles solve this problem by breaking your automation into clean structured components. So each role contains its own tasks, handlers, templates, defaults, this make your automation much easier to read and maintain. So roles also help with reusability. So for example, if you want to create a web server like this one, role you can use that same role across different environments like if you want dev, staging, and production without rewriting anything. Si roles yung naghe-help to ensure consistency across systems and teams. And Ansible has a standard structure for roles which looks like this. Yan. Ganyan yung structure if magde-define kayo ng role sa Ansible. So each folder has a specific purpose. So in task, for example, task contains the main actions the role performs. Then in handlers, it contains tasks that run when notified. Then for templates, it holds configuration. Then for files, it contains static files to copy. Then for vars slash defaults, it stores variable values. So breaking tasks into separate files inside a role makes your automation cleaner, easier to update, and much more scalable. So this is why roles are widely considered a best practice when working with Ansible at any real-world scale. Yan, yan. Next, we have templates, Jinja 2. Here, We have templates in Ansible, templates which are powered by the Jinja 2 templating language. Templates allows us to create a dynamic configuration files, meaning config files that automatically adapt based on on variables. So it generates dynamic configuration files. It uses variables directly inside templates, and it is ideal for Nginx, Apache app configs, and etc. Instead of hard coding settings directly into your playbook, you write a template file, usually ending with .j2. Example is this. And inside that file, you can place variables like server port. Ito yung laman. Yun nasa loob ng Nginx. Ito yung laman. Like server port or Ansible underscore hostname or kung ano man yung hostname na ano nyo. Then when Ansible process the template, it replaces these variables placeholders with real values from your inventory or playbook. So it is a extremely powerful for generating things like Nginx, configs, Apache virtual host, application settings, or any file that needs to change depending on the host. Yun. Then next, we have the error handling and debugging in Ansible. For error handling and debugging, even, so how we can troubleshoot and debug Ansible playbooks. So even though Ansible tries to give clear error messages, automation can still fail for a lot of reasons. So incorrect indentations, missing variables, unreachable hosts, or module failures. Knowing how to debug effectively saves a ton of time. So the first helpful option is dash dash, itong command to, dash dash syntax dash check. It validates playbook structure. Then si dash dash check, siya yung dry run mode, no changes made. Dry run lang siya. Then dash dash diff, show file differences. Then kapag sinabing dash b or dash dv or dash bbb, it increases the verbosity. So in this syntax dash check na command, it will catch indentation issues, missing colons, and other structural errors before anything is executed. So kapag namang dash dash check flag, also known as dry run mode, when you run a playbook with check, Ansible shows you what it would change without actually performing the changes. So this is extremely useful when you are working in a production because you can preview what's going on to happen before applying it. So another debugging tools is dash dash dip. Parang ganito din pag yung common na mga commands. Kapag si dash dash dip, it shows the differences between the existing file on the server and what Ansible plans to put in place. So that this helps you uh, to understand exactly what you are changing line by line. So finally, if you ever need detailed output, you can increase Ansible's verbosity using dash B. Yan. So each level gives you more detail. So, yung triple V na to, si dash DVV level is particularly helpful when you are debugging connection issues or module failures because it prints the underlying SSH and command details. So, together, these debugging tools, it will give you everything you need to diagnose problems quickly and safely. Yan yung mga common debugging command tool used in Ansible. Yan. Error handling and debugging, syntax, dash checks, validate playbook, syntax, dash check, enable dry run mode, show the dash diff, show file differences, and then dash bbb, increase verbosity. Next, we have the Ansible Galaxy. Ansible Galaxy, it has the public repository for Ansible roles and collections. So it speeds up development. It encourages reusable automation. For install community roles, we have this command, Ansible Galaxy install, then yung name ng ano niya, file. Then if you want to create your own role, Ansible-Galaxy init my role. And then benefits of using this is it provides reusable components, community tested rules, faster automation setup. So we have here a diagram on how it works. So Ansible Galaxy. So on the left, we start with Ansible Galaxy. It has It is essentially Ansible's public library of reusable roles and collections. So this is where thousands of community contributors upload automation rules for tasks like installing MySQL, configuring Nginx, setting up Kubernetes nodes, and much more. So from Galaxy, you can install ready-made roles directly into your project with a single command. So for example, we have here the Ansible-Galaxy install. Yan. So in this command, this allows you to leverage community expertise instead of writing everything from scratch. So the next part of the flow is the uh, itong installed role na to. So, once the role is downloaded, once na downloaded na yan, ito first in your local roles, yung parang roles na directory nyo, then you can customize it, reuse it, or you can plug it directly into your playbooks. Ganito siya i-define sa playbook. Then, on this right side, you will see the Ansible Playbook, which it represents how Galaxy roles integrate into your automation. You can just simply reference the role inside a playbook like this. Yan, roles, tapos dash. Tagtag tong isang dash na to. Ito lang siya. Pag ilalagay mo sa Ansible Playbook. So, si Ansible Playbook, like what I've said, siya parang isang YAML file. Hahanap akong example mamaya. Then, so in this workflow, you have the Browse Galaxy, install role, use role in your playbook. So, this greatly speeds up your development time and ensures you're using best practices from the Ansible community. Yan. Then, wait, hanap lang ako ng muna ako ng Ansible playbook dito. If you want to explore more on Ansible, we have here the Ansible community documentation. Nandito lahat in related sa Ansible. In order to install it, Ansible 14 guides, all are in here in this documentation. So, for example, ay itong playbook na to, it update web servers, naka-remote user sa root, may mga tasks na i-define. Then once na i-raran mo to, gagawin may Ansible yon kung ano yung mga tasks na pinaglalagay mo. Halimbawa, mag-create ka ng EC2 instance, ilalagay mo lang yung mga tasks, then direct na iaano ni Ansible yon na gagawin. Yun lang. To run your playbook, use Ansible-playbook command. Yan. Halimbawa ito. Ayun lang. Kalimitang ginagamit si Ansible pag mga automation script. Like mag-update ng mga EC2 instances, maglalagay ng package, or kung ano mang gustong may ipapatch sa web server. Yan. Diyan ginagamit. Pag sinabi ng manager nyo, can you create a Ansible playbook for me? Kayo ang gagawa nun as a DevOps. Ayun, ilalagay ko to sa LMS, itong documentation. Lahat ng, if you want to dive deeper in Ansible, you can just browse in this documentation po. Yan. Ayan. Then, after nun, we will move now to where is my slide? CI/CD with AWS. So, in here, we will tackle the introduction to CI/CD, AWS CI/CD tooling, CI/CD pipeline architecture in AWS, code commit, source stage, then code build, build stage, code deploy, deployment stage, and then infrastructure as code, integration, then monitoring and logging. So, if you're able to be in this session, parang natutunan nyo na yung mga pinaka-core skills para maging isang DevOps support or cloud DevOps engineer. So, in this slide, we have the introduction to CI/CD that we tackle last sessions. So, introduction to CI/CD, we have CI, which stands for the continuous integration. So, this is the practice of automatically building and testing your code every time a developer pushes changes to the repository. So, it automates code builds and tests, then detect issues early. And then for CD, in here pala in CI, the goal here is to catch bugs early, integrate code frequently, and avoid the it works on my machine issues. So for CD naman, it is continuous deployment or delivery. We automate app releases here, ensure fast, reliable deployments. So CD stands for continuous deployment, and CD uh, stands for continuous delivery. So it means every change is tested and ready for production but may still require approval. So in continuous deployment, it takes one step further. Every change that passes all checks goes straight to production automatically. So if you are going to have a DevOps interview, ipapadefine sa inyo what is the difference of the continuous deployment and continuous delivery. You need to define it. So, maano nyo yung manager nyo in case mag-apply kayo in a DevOps job. Ninyo i-define yan based on your own understanding. So, why CI/CD matters in DevOps? It helps in faster release cycles, higher code quality, less manual work, and it supports DevOps culture. So CI/CD is powerful because it reduces manual work, increases development speed, and helps teams deliver high quality software more reliable, reliably. Then in-house, it provides tools that make this automation flow easier to build. So you can scale and maintain it. In the next slides, we'll explore how these house services come together to form a modern CI/CD pipeline. So next is slide here. In here is the example diagram of how a CI/CD works. So we have a code here and then we push and commit changes on the code. And for the CI pipeline, we have the build, unit test, and integration test happens here. And for the CD part of our pipeline, we have the review, staging, and production phases. Nandiyan yan. So in here we can see how CI/CD works in an end-to-end DevOps pipeline. So AWS CI/CD tooling. In AWS or Amazon Web Service, there is a developer tools like Code Commit, which is private Git repositories, Code Build, build and test automation, and then Code Deploy for deployment automation, and then for Code Pipeline, it connects all pipeline stages, and additional tools that we have are Code Artifact, for package management, and CodeStar, unified project dashboard, and then Code Guru for automated reviews and insights. If you are also applying or if you are applying a DevOps engineer role, pinapa-define din yan what is code commit, code build, code deploy, and code pipeline based on my experience. So, let's tackle, wait, ano pa ang pwedeng i-discuss for, ito, sige, isa-isahin natin. For code commit, or ISO, yeah. For code commit, it is a fully managed Git repository service. So it works just like GitHub or GitLab or Bitbucket, but lives inside your AWS account. So next we have code build. So in code build, it is automation engine for compiling code, running tests, and producing deployable artifacts. So it replaces build servers and scales automatically. Then we have here the code deploy. So for code deploy, it handles deployments across EC2, ECS, Lambda, or even on on-prem servers. It supports in place and blue. If you know the blue-green deployment strategies, it supports in this phase, the code deploy for deployment automation. Then for code pipeline, it ties everything together. It orchestrates the entire flow, source, build, test, and deploy. It automatically triggers each stage based on repository changes or manual approvals. So together with these tools, it forms the backbone of CI/CD on AWS. So next is slide. So in here we have the let's walk through in the CI/CD pipeline architecture in AWS step by step, so you can understand how code moves from a developer machine all the way into production. So we start on the left with the developer here. So whenever the developer pushes code changes, those updates go directly into the code commit, which is a AWS fully managed Git repository service. So this acts as the source stage for the pipeline. Wait, rinig niyo ba ako po? Yan. Thank you. Then, as soon as the new code arrives in code commit, it triggers magka-connected, it triggers the code pipeline. So, si code pipeline, it is the orchestration layer. It automatically detects code changes and begins running the pipeline stages. So, think of it as the glue connecting all the CI/CD components. So, next is the code build. So, if code pipeline hands off the new code to code build, where the build and test process happens. Dito yan sa code build. Run, test, and build. So in code build, it compiles the source, it installs dependencies, runs unit tests, and produces build artifacts. And so these artifacts can be application, packages, container images, or static asset bundles. So once the build succeeds, code pipeline assess it, passes, uh, the code pipeline passes the artifacts to code deploy. Pinapasa niya papunta dito sa code deploy na to. So, code deploy is the one that handles the actual deployment. So, code deploy is responsible for pushing the application to the appropriate environment. Kung ano ba yung target niya environment. Si code deploy na yung bahala. So, you'll see at the bottom of the diagram the different deployment targets like EC2 instances, the traditional server deployments, ECS using blue-green deployments. It is great for containerized apps with zero downtime. And we have here the S3 or CloudFront, which is commonly used for static websites or front-end assets. So those arrows show how the build artifacts flow from code build to the deployment destination. See, code deploy, it coordinates the rollout, monitors progress, and can even automatically roll back if something goes wrong. So the overall flow is the developer pushes the code in code commit, receives it in the code pipeline tree. In code pipeline, it triggers the stages direct to the code build, which in code build, it compiles and tests. Then for code deploy, it deploys to EC2, uh, those resources like EC2 instances, ECS Lambda, or S3 or CloudFront resources. So this automated pipeline ensure faster releases, safer deployments, and fewer manual steps, which is the core goal of CI/CD in AWS. So, isa-isahin ulit natin. So, in code commit, it is the source stage. So, let's break down the first stage of the CI/CD pipeline, which is the source stage, AWS code commit. So, in code commit, it is a fully managed Git repository service offered by AWS. It works like GitHub or Bitbucket. Uh, but the advantage that it lives entirely inside your AWS environment. So this means it has benefit from AWS level security, CIAM, access control, and integration with other AWS developer tools. So in with Code Commit, you can manage your code using standard Git tools including cloning, branching, merging, and pull requests. So it stores everything securely. It encrypted at rest and in transit. So one of the most important features of Code Commit is its ability to trigger pipelines. So when a developer pushes a new code to a branch, Code Commit can automatically notify code pipeline through CloudWatch events or event bridge. So this allows your CI/CD pipeline to begin immediately. Basta tandaan nyo lang pag sinabing code commit at may nag-interview sa'yo, what is code commit? You just need to say it serves as the version control system and the automatic trigger point for your CI/CD flow. Yan. Then next, yan. Ito pala yan. This is the example diagram for code commit. Fully managed Git repositories, secure, scalable, access control, and triggers. Yan. Wait lang, may tingnan lang ako. Tingnan ko lang siya sa AWS. Yan. Yan. Si Code Commit fully managed Git repositories in this part, secure and scalable, IAM, access control, and then triggers push-based CloudWatch events like event bridge. Yan. So next we have the code build for the build stage. So what code build does, so it compiles source code, installs dependencies, runs tests, it creates build artifacts. So the key features of code build is it is fully managed, no build servers, scales automatically, supports Docker builds, CloudWatch logging, and metrics. And you have here the build spec.yaml, and it controls build steps, defines environment variables, and defines artifacts and reports. So let's break it down. So after the source stage, our pipeline moves into the build stage, which is handled by AWS Code Build. So si Code Build, it is a fully managed build service instead of running your own Jenkins server or managing your own build agents. Si Code Build yung automatically provisions environments for compiling code, installing dependencies, running unit tests, and generating artifacts. So one major advantage of Code Build is that it scales automatically if you have multiple builds happening at once. So si Code Build yung nag-spin up ng additional build containers, so your developers never have to wait in long build queues. So code build is controlled using a file called buildspec.yaml. This file defines the entire build process, which includes install commands, environment variables, test commands, and output directories. So, and the final artifacts that should be stored for deployment. So for containerized applications, Code Build can even run Docker builds and push images to Amazon EZR. So all logs from Code Build go to CloudWatch, which makes troubleshooting easier. And once the code completes, successfully, the build artifacts are passed back to a code pipeline for deployment stage. So overall, C code build is the engine of the CI process. It validates the code, tests it, and produces the files that will be deployed. Yan yung diagram ni code build. So in here, we have the source repositories like GitHub. Yan. House code build. Hindi, house code build application to mismo ng AWS ha. It installs dependencies, run tests, compile code. Yan. Then there is an artifact container image. Pupunta naman siya sa code deploy or code pipeline. Next, we have the code deploy. Now we're at the deployment stage of our CI/CD pipeline, which is handled by AWS Code Deploy. Si Code Deploy, siya yung, ang main job niya is to take the built artifacts and roll them out to your runtime environments. It can deploy to several different targets, traditional EC2 instances, auto-scaling groups, ECS services, Lambda functions, and even on premises servers. So the flexibility lets you use the same deployment tool across many types of applications. C Code Deploy, it supports two main deployment types. Uh, the first in-place deployment is the in Code Deploy, it updates the application directly on the existing instances. Ito, deploy, two deployment types in place, rolling update on existing instances, and then there is a blue, green, and new or new environment, then switch traffic. For in place, we have deploy that updates the application directly on the existing instances. It usually does this in batches, taking a portion of instances out of service, updating them, running health checks, and then moving on to the next batch. So this is a common for a simple server updates. So the second type is blue-green naman. So in blue-green deployment, uh, si Code Deploy brings up a new set of instances or a new ECS task which set with the new version of the application. So once everything is healthy and it shifts traffic from the old environment, blue, So, papunta naman siya sa green to the new one. So, kapag luma or old environment, blue. Kapag idadalhin mo na siya sa, i-switch mo siya papunta sa bagong environment, yun yung green. Kaya tinawag na blue-green deployment. So if something goes wrong, it can quickly shift traffic back. So this approach gives you safer near zero downtime deployments. Next I so C code deploy, then it relies on a configuration file code called upspec.yaml. So this file tells code deploy what to do during a deployment, which files to copy, where to put them, which scripts to run before and after the deployment, and how to handle lifecycle events like before install, after install, and application start. Yan, ito yan, sa appspec.yaml. So, yan. Ito na lang pala. Here we have the diagram of AWS Code Deploy. Then another picture na maganda kay Code Deploy is automatic rollback dito sa part na to. If deployments fail, health check or alarms are triggered. Si Code Deploy can automatically revert to the previous working version combined with CloudWatch metrics and alarms. So this gives you a safety net during releases. So in summary, si Code Deploy, it takes the artifacts from code build, rolls them out to your compute environments. It manages health check and lifecycle hooks, and it gives you both in place and blue-green deployment strategies with rollback support. Yan. Yun. Then next, we have the infrastructure as a code or IAC integration. So why IAC matters in DevOps? So now that we've covered the deployment stage, let's talk about this infrastructure as a code into that ties into a CI/CD pipeline on AWS. But itatakal din ata natin to mga next session. Parang basic muna tong ano. So why AAC or infrastructure as a code matters? So in DevOps, it automates provisioning of CI/CD resources. It ensures consistent, repeatable environments, enables version-controlled infrastructure. AWS IAC options, we have here the CloudFormation, Terraform, AWS CDK or Cloud Development Kit, CI/CD integration, it deploy pipelines using IAC or infrastructure as a code, and manage code pipeline, code build, code deploy resources, and store infrastructure as a code templates in code commits. So it automates changes through code pipeline. In infrastructure as a code is all about defining your infrastructure like servers, pipelines, permissions, networking, and more. So using configuration files instead of manually provisioning resources. This allows you to create consistent, repeatable environments and track changes to your infrastructure the same way you track changes to your application code. So in the AWS ecosystem, you typically use one of the three IAC tools like in here. So the first is AWS CloudFormation, which allows you to describe your infrastructure using a JSON or YAML templates. Then ang gamit niya. Then for my favorite, which is Terraform, which is popular in a multi-cloud infrastructure as a code tool. So in Terraform, we uses its own declarative language, which is HashiCorp language. or HCL and allows you to provision not only AWS resources but also resources that other from other cloud providers and SaaS platform. So the third option naman is si AWS CDK, Cloud Development Kit. So in CDK, it lets you write infrastructure using actual programming languages like Python, TypeScript, or Java. So it gives the developers more flexibility and the ability to use loops, conditionals, or reusable constructs when defining infrastructure. So if you guys learn infrastructure as a code, especially it is a powerful it is powerful when combined with CI/CD. So instead of manually creating pipelines by using code build projects or code deploy configurations, you can define them all in your infrastructure as a code files and deploy them automatically. So templates can be stored in code commit, versioned, reviewed, and deployed through code pipelines. This means that not only your application code can go through the same automated build, test, and deployment process. So when a developer updates for example, a So for example, is when a developer updates a CloudFormation or Terraform file, the pipeline can automatically apply those changes, ensuring your environment always stays consistent, reproducible, and aligned with your code base. So in short, CIAC is the foundation that makes scalable, automated CI/CD pipelines possible, and it ensures every environment from dev to production, it can be created the same way every time. If you want to, if gusto niyo ng karera sa automation, need nyo aralin yung infrastructure as a code in order for you to build a automated uh, AWS infrastructure, resources, or environment. Need nyo tong Terraform na to, which is uh, sobrang in demand kapag naghahanap ng DevOps. Yan yung sample ng halimbawa is Terraform. Si Terraform kasi pwede yang gamitin throughout sa kahit anong cloud, AWS, Azure, or GCP. Meron yang mga reusable module na pwede mong gamitin para makapag-provision ng resources throughout on any cloud like this three. So, meron ka diyang Terraform State, Terraform.tf-vars, may Terraform Provider, may mga Terraform instances.tf or mga main.tf, variables.tf, output.tf. Next session or mga susunod na session natin is deep dive yung si Terraform. Yan. This is a workflow basics for infrastructure as a code. So, if a user or developer write code, may infra as a code dito na ginawa ka, kung yan is Terraform or CloudFormation, nakapush, dun mo pinupush sa GitHub mo, then magpo-pull and push ka sa automation server, pasok siya papunta sa cloud infra, your target cloud infra environment, then manage sa mga on-prem, yan. Kaya kayang-kaya mong gumawa ng isang buong AWS infrastructure ng company nyo if maalam ka mag-Terraform at Ansible. Next, we have the monitoring and logging. So, monitoring and logging in AWS CI/CD, why monitoring matters. So, if you learn how to monitor your resources in AWS, you can detect pipelines failures, track build or test or deployment Health, yung mga health status check, enable automated rollback, improve visibility across environments. The next, we have the house monitoring tools. We have here the CloudWatch logs. In CloudWatch logs, you have the code build logs, code deploy lifecycle logs. And for CloudWatch metrics and alarms, you have the pipeline success or failure, deployment health, CloudTrail. Yung sa CloudTrail, last time ko pinakita, titingnan ulit natin mamaya. Then, in Cloudtrail, you have the audits, API calls, and changes. X-ray is optional. Then, application performance tracing. So, this is how it works in a diagram. So, we have the monitoring and logging. We have here the CloudWatch logs. Optional naman to si X-ray. So in CloudWatch logs, we have the code build logs, code deploy, life cycle logs. In CloudWatch metrics and alarms, we have the pipeline success or failure, deployment health, kita niya. Kapag CloudTrail, if may changes kayo sa AWS resources nyo at ginalaw mo, kita yung changes mo. Yan, application tracing. Then, for pipeline observability, yan, execution history, logs and report notifications. Ayun. Then, pakita kong example. Ano tayo, pakita ko muna yung sample sa AWS. Then, kapag, eto, kita po, screen ko ng AWS. Yan. Kapag may AWS din yung may AWS free-tier account, kahit free-tier account man lang. Ito yung mga house code build, how it works, source code, lahat ng docs nandito din, logs, reports, kapag code commit, getting started, yan, repositories, pwede kang mag-create ng repo dito, mga code artifact, lahat ng example or ng resources or ng documentation na gusto nyong i-deep dive, nandun ito sa AWS na docs. O deploy, getting started, deployments. Pero bibihira, wala pa akong na-encounter na nagamit ng ganito na organization. Mapangit ata ito gamitin. Pero merong mismong si AWS eh. So, deploy, pipeline. Ayan, nandito siya sa developer tools na code deploy. Lahat. Tapos, kapag mga monitoring, like, yung ginagawa namin ngayon, wait, instance. Halimbawa, merong EC2 instances. Halimbawa, itong Core First Beta. Sa part ng instance, sa halimbawa may EC2 instance ka, like this one, then may inanawigit mo sa status and alarms, kita mo na lahat ay dapat naka-check, dapat ay walang nagda-down. Monitoring, connected siya sa CloudWatch. Yan. Dapat maalam kayo magbasa ng ganito. For halimbawa ay hindi, yung mga na-connect sa server nyo, kita nyo dito. Kung ilang mga connection. CloudWatch. Mm, ang task namin ngayon is, for example, ay wag daw hahayaan mag-down yung mga servers na maraming nakakonect. Tulad nito, EC2 instances. Yan. CPU utilization. Kita nyo dyan. Halimbawa itong mga kayo ay mag-investigate. Network and average. Yan. Dapat ang kalimitang state ay running. Pag nag-i-stop, kung halimbawa connected yung EC2 instances mo sa mga global accelerator, ALB, need mo i-check yung mga connected resources niya para mapa-up yung server. Tulad nito naka-stop. Pag naka-stop, wala. Down yan, wala nagamit. Kapag mga, saan yung target group? Yan, dapat laging healthy to. May mga target, tapos minsan nag-unhealthy. Monitoring, dapat lagi yung monitor as a DevOps. Di naman, pero minsan nag-aano lang ng alarm. May ginagawang CloudWatch alarm. Tulad nitong sa amin. Saan na yan? Um, ito, may CloudWatch alarm. Nag-a-alarm siya. Connected sa Datadog. Dapat ito'y tinitingnan. Tulad nito, nag-alarm kasi yung threshold 2 out of last 2 data points were greater than the threshold. Pag ganito, ang ginagawa ko, hinahanap ko yung name, tas punta na ako sa in-alarm, tas hanapin ko yung alarm na tulad nito, nag-alarm siya. Yan. Ina-explore ko pa din ngayon yung sa CloudWatch alarm. Hindi pa rin ako masyado mag-ano nito. Kung paano siya ipipix pag in-alarm. Actions enabled auto-scaling. Yan, ito pala sa history kita. Okay, in-alarm. Tapos, pipindutin mo to sa date. Tapos, ipapakita niya kung bakit nag-in-alarm yan. Yung sa history data niya kita dito. Actions. Kapag in-alarm, need mo siya mapa-up. Kasi may mga client na nagpapanik bigla. So, kapag naman cloud, hindi ko sure kung meron dito sa cloud formation. Ito naman yung sa cloud formation. Para din tong Terraform. Yan, pag nag-create ka ng resources, review and process, CDK toolkit, create failed, malalaman mo kung bakit siya nagpe-fail. Sa events, punta ka lagi sa events. Yan, kita mo yan. Makakapag root cause analysis ka na dyan kung bakit nagda-down yung server. Then, yan, create failed the following resources, failed to create sa ECS service. Yan, kalimitang inaayos yan ng DevOps. Or kapag may need ipa-check sa inyo, as a DevOps kayo ang mag-aayos nun. Create, resources create, failed state. Tapos may tingnan din nyo sa mga ECS. Elastic Container Service. Kung paano yung, halimbawa, itong Battlehawk cluster. May mga task dyan na down. Dapat lahat ito ay healthy. Hindi naka-stop. Metrics. Tapos may sineset silang yung dapat may running laging task. Active 1. Pero may parang running task. Tapos pag may deployment, ano nila yan? Monitor. Kita sa CloudWatch log. Pag kayo ay naliligaw sa AWS, lagi yung tingnan nyo sa logs niya. Makakapag ano na kayo dun. Makakapag root cause analysis na kayo kung ano yung nagda-down. Tapos hanapin nyo yung mga connected na resources sa kanya. Kasi minsan, kasi yung sa amin ay tinitingnan muna sa DNS sa Route 53 tapos connected siya sa accelerator. Ganito. May mga listener yan, protocol, may status na nag-unhealthy din. Need nyo i-check din yung mga ganyan. Lahat na connected. Kapag naman WAP and shield, huwag na pala ito, malayo na. Ayun lang, yung sa sample ng sa monitoring and logging. CloudWatch Metrics. Pag yung CloudTrail, yung alam kung sino ang, naipakita ko na naman to last time. Alam kung sino yung nag-changes or if ayaw nyo mag-aminan kung sino yung gumalaw ng ganitong resources, kita naman yan dito sa event history. Event name or kung ano yung resource name. Halimbawa, may EC2 instance kang tinagtaga na security group. Makikita ka dito, username mong gamit. Ayun, kaya wag basta gagalaw sa infrastructure kung hindi alam ang gagalawin dahil kita kayo ng DevOps admin. Ayun po, then break tayo ng 15 minutes. For introduction, so let's start by understanding what containers are. So we have here the introduction for containers. So what are containers? So containers are lightweight, self-contained environments that include your application code along with everything it needs to run. So example, you have your libraries, dependencies, configurations, that are packaged together. Yan. So, containers versus virtual machines. So, unlike virtual machines, Containers do not require a full operating system for each app. So instead, they share the host machine's OS kernel. This makes containers significantly faster to start, more efficient in resource usage, and much smaller in size. Yan. And kasama dito pag ah, if na tawag dito, if na-encounter or if makakarating kayo sa mga parang final interview as a DevOps, tinatanong, what is containers? Can you define what containers versus virtual machines are? Yon. In just a simple word, you can define it by understanding this session. So, pag sinabing containers, it is as faster, small, more efficient, unlike virtual machines. So why DevOps uses containers? So it is consistent from dev to prod. It has faster deployment and scaling, ideal for microservices. Huwag kang maingay, ate! So the biggest reason is environment consistency. Containers run exactly the same way on a developer's laptop. So on a CI/CD server or in production, they also allow much faster deployment, simplified scaling, and form the foundation of microservices architectures. So containers give teams speed, portability, and reliability across the entire software life cycle. Madalas na if you are a developer, madalas din 'tong ginagamit sa sa inyong organization 'pag may ide-deploy kayong application or code niyo. Tapos tatanungin, anong gamit na container? Tapos sasabihin niyo is Docker. So, we have here the Docker fundamentals. Mm, for Docker fundamentals, so now that we understand containers, let's look at Docker, which is the most widely used container platform. At the core of Docker is the Docker engine. It is the runtime that actually builds and runs containers. May Docker engine yan. And it provides Docker commands. Developers interact with Docker using the Docker CLI, which provides commands like Docker run, Docker build, and Docker pull. So in Docker, it uses several key concepts like an image, which is a serve as a blueprint, and a container, uh, as a running instance of that image. So every time you start a container from an image, it behaves like an isolated application environment. Images built in layers. So each line in a Docker file that you build, it creates a new layer. So si Docker, siya yung magkakache ng layer na to, then it makes the build faster and more efficient. And especially when only part of your code changes. So, in Docker Hub, uh, may gamit si Docker, yun yung si Docker Hub and registries, which includes the public and private registries, host and distribute images, integrates with CI/CD pipelines. So, si Docker Hub, yung most popular public registry where images can be stored and downloaded. So organizations can also use private registries such as Docker Hub Private Repos, yung AWS ECR, meron ding tinatawag na GitHub Container Registry or self-hosted registries. May registries din na nagpe-play registries play a key role in CI/CD because they store the images, yung ginagamit na images ng application ng developer that get deployed across the environment. Si container yung hawak. The next is we have the Docker file. So Docker file, we have the building custom images, base images, and the common structure used in Docker or in a Docker file. So the Docker file is the recipe Docker uses to build an image. So when we say we are building an image, what we're really doing is letting Docker read this file line by line, executing instructions to assemble the container environment. So every Docker file, it starts with a base image na gamit, specified using the pram is instruction. May pram, halimbawa may base image, Alpine, ganon. Then this could be something lightweight like Alpine Linux or a language runtime like Python, Node.js or Java. So yung run instruction naman, uh, it executes commands. It lets you execute commands inside the image in order to install packages, copying files, or setting up dependencies. Then si copy, it allows add files to image, or it allows us to bring application code or configuration file into the image. And then si expose, it in expose naman, it documents which port the application runs on. Kung alin yung port na tatargetin. Para dun magraran yung ano mo, image. Then for CMD, every container needs a startup command or an entry point. Si CMD is like a default command while entry point defines the main executable. Yeah, executable, and many images use them together. Yan. There are also a few best practices to keep images small and efficient. Using minimal base images reduces size and attack surface. So keeping Docker file layers small speeds up builds, and very importantly, never store credentials or yung mga secrets nyo inside an image. Instead, pass them as a environment variables, or use a house secret manager or kung ano mang secret manager encryption nyo, or may mga tatawag na mga HashiCorp vault, doon nyo ipaglalagay yung mga sensitive credentials or secrets na meron kanyo. Huwag nyo ipapasok sa Docker file. So, with a well-written Docker file, you get consistent, reproducible builds across development, staging, and production. Ganito, this is how Docker file works. Ito yung Docker file, babasahin yan, merong Docker image, papunta yan sa Docker container. Yan. Yan, yung halimbawa, yung Docker file nyo, may from, run, copy, expose, cmd na mga commands. Tapos may image layer, yan yung image. Yan, Docker image yun. Tapos ipapatok siya sa container. Next is we have the Docker Compose. So, in Docker Compose, Docker Compose is a tool for running multi-container applications. So, in multi-container applications in docker-compose.yaml, kapag kayo ay isang DevOps, tapos naka-collaborate ka sa mga developer, ang DevOps ang ang DevOps ang gumagalaw nitong docker-compose.yaml, or kung sino yung pinaka DevTech lead. Yan. Siya yung nag-update. Then, run whole stack with one command, great for local dev and testing. Ang key concepts for this, instead of starting each container manually with a long Docker run command, si compose lets you describe your entire stack in a single docker-compose.yaml file. So, in that file, itong si docker-compose.yaml file, siya yung nagde-define ng each service, for example, API, DB, and Redis, and specify which image it uses, what ports to expose, and which volumes to mount, and how services connect to each other. Si Compose din yung nagma-manage ng networks automatically, how services talk to each other, using simple host names like DB or Redis instead of IP addresses. It can also create volumes so that database data or logs persist even if the even if the container is recreated. So the workflow is simple. We define everything in docker-compose.yaml, then run docker compose up to start the whole stack, and docker compose down to stop and clean it up. So this makes it perfect for local development and integration testing. Developers can spin up the full environment with a single command. Yan. Yan yung example ng Docker type. So in here, ang example pa ng Docker-compose. So compose creates a network so services can call each other by name. So example, a HTTP product ay nakaano sa 8080. Then yung may user, yan. So your client can call localhost 8081 na slash products and then localhost 8082. Yan. Ganyan ang itsura niya. YAML din. Ganito si Docker-compose architecture diagram. Yan. So next we have the microservice. So what are microservice? Docker and containers become especially powerful when we move into microservice architecture. So in a microservice approach, we break a large application mm, into a much smaller or independent services. So each microservice focuses on a single business capability. For example, orders, payments, hindi ito ata. Hindi. Ito. So, yan. Or users. So these services communicate with each other over APIs, usually yung mga HTTP or REST, gRPC or messaging systems like queue and streams. So, yan, microservice versus monolith. Malimit din itong tinatanong, what is microservice and monolith? So, in monolith, it is a single code-based, single deployable unit, while si microservice, many small services deployed independently. Dun sa pinag-anahan ko dati, sa NAB, gumagamit ng maraming microservices. Yun yung i-deploy ng mga developer. Then, benefits of this, it is independent deployments, technology flexibility for service, and better scalability and fault isolation. Challenges, distributed debugging and monitoring, network latency and failures, and then data consistency between services. So on this slide, we're comparing the two very different ways of designing an application. So we have here on the left the microservice architecture, and on the right is the monolithic architecture. Understanding the difference between these two models is essential to understand why Docker and containers are so valuable in modern DevOps. So let's start muna dito sa right side. So in a monolithic architecture, the entire application is packaged, deployed, and run as a single large unit. So the user interface, business logic, and data access layer all live together, tightly coupled within one code base. So this means that if you want to update just one small feature like the login page, you still have to redeploy the the entire application. So every part ay nakadepende on the rest. So which makes scaling difficult because you can only scale the whole system, not the individual components. So, si monoliths are easier to start with, but over time, they tend to become larger, harder to maintain, and more fragile. A problem in one area can potentially affect the entire system. Monolithic architecture. Then, for the microservice na part naman, or microservice architecture, in this design, the application is broken down into many small independent services like in here. So each responsible for a specific function. So for example, you might have separate services for users, products, orders, inventory, notifications, and payments. So instead of one big application, you have multiple small applications, each one with its own code base. So it has its own deployment pipeline, and often it has its own database. The user interface communicates with each microservice individually. So the key benefit is independent siya. So each microservice can be developed, deployed, scaled, and updated without affecting the others. So if a new feature needs to go live for example, in the payment service, only that service is redeployed. Everything else continues running without any interruption. So microservice also make it easier for teams to work in parallel using different technologies and failures. It is isolated, so one service going down doesn't crash the whole system. Yan ang power ni microservice architecture na malimit na ina-adapt ng pag may organization kayo. So connecting these two containers like Docker, so this is where Docker and containers become incredibly important. So in a microservice architecture, each service runs inside its own container. So packaged with everything it needs. And it has a runtime libraries and dependencies. So this guarantees that each microservice behaves the same on a developer's laptop inside CI/CD pipelines and in production. So in containers, yan. So in containers, it's also allow each microservice to be deployed independently and scaled individually based on workload. So, for example, if the product catalog gets heavy traffic, you can scale just the product containers without touching the user or payment services. So, if you will deep dive into a high level architecture of it. Si monolith, yan yung one big application, one deployment, one scaling unit. While microservices, many small applications, many deployments, independently scalable, and Docker is what makes this architecture practical and manageable. So in summary, the monolithic architecture is simple to start with but difficult to scale and evolve. See, microservice breaks down the application into smaller parts and it is independent components. And Docker is the foundational technology that makes microservice easy to deploy, scale, and manage across environments. Next, we have this diagram. We see three microservices. For example, I product, user, and payment. So in a modern DevOps setup, each one of these is built and shipped as its own Docker image. So at runtime, those images become containers. So for example, several product containers behind a load balancer, several user containers, and so on. Locally, we use Docker Compose to spin all of them up together. And in production, we use an orchestrator like ECS. Nakagamit na ng Elastic Container Service yung kanina or Kubernetes to schedule containers, scale them, and keep them healthy. So you can think of microservice as the architecture and Docker containers as the packaging, si Docker yung packaging and runtime that makes that architecture practical. Ayun. Doon siya nag-work. Ganun mag-work si microservice at si Docker. Ayun. If gusto nyong mag-deep dive into Docker, meron niyang documentation din about ito. www.docker.com. Nandiyan lahat. Learn how to build and share a containerized app. Take the tutorial on your desktop or in the cloud. Mag-install kayo dyan ng Docker desktop. Download here, then gagawin nyo to. Then, i-open nyo siya sa browser, localhost. Yan. Then, pwede na kayo mag-play around with Docker. Ayan. Kapag naman sa real world na ganito siya. Hindi ko lang alam kung nasa na ba yan. Halimbawa, Elastic Container Service. Tingnan ko lang kung Docker ang gamit dito. Hintay lang. Task infrastructure schedule task. Ito registered container instances. Iba. Sa iba siya hanap ako ng nagamit ng Docker. Ako boss ko. Core. Replica task definition. One-word task definition. Detail. Container details for landlord fraud. Docker. Hindi Docker ang gamit dito. Anong gamit nila? Image. Ito. Dito sila nakuha. Ito yung sinasabing image. Nasa ECR. Hanap tayo. Elastic. Container. Registry. Ito yung lagayan ng mga container image ng Docker. Meron din itong GitLab Container Registry. Meron ding Nexus na pwedeng paglagyan. O halimbawa ay ito. Private repository paggamit ng yan. Ito yung image, yan. Ito yung repository name niya. Ito yung image tag, latest. Ayan yung image na yon. Tapos, if gusto nyo ito ma-pull ng local, push up December 20 repository, gamit nila. URI, nandito. Walang ano. Yun, ito. Halimbawa, gusto nyo itong ma-pull sa local nyo, view push commands, gagamitin nyo to. If may connected na EC2 instance, Windows ang gamit nyo or Linux, copy nyo itong mga ano to. Tapos makukuha nyo sa local nyo yung image or if need nyo mag-push ng image papunta sa ECR na to, yun, yung gagamitin tong mga view push command. Dito rin pwedeng gumamit ng CLI, house CLI, dapat sa AWS para yun, pwede nyo dito i-execute yung mga commands na ito. Yan. Yan ang example ng images. Mga base image. Repositories. ECR, mutable. Image index. Image size. Basta if gusto niyo makita yung images na gamit ng application nyo, nandito siya sa Amazon ECR, private registry, repositories, then images. Yan. Yan yung mga images. Kung ito ba ay Docker or kung ano. Meron ding tinitingnan na Docker Hub. Table. Ito, Docker. Docker Compose. Kung ano ang inyong ito halimbawa ng Docker file. Yan. From run. Yan. Kaya nang bahala mag-explore. Where to get Docker Compose. Quick start. Redis image. Yan. Ito, Docker docs. Ito. Docker build. If gusto nyo i-explore more si Docker, pwede kayo mag-navigate dito sa docs.docker.com build. Tapos, tapos, introduction to compose. Lahat nandito. If you want to learn more about Docker kasi gamit na gamit to ng DevOps at ng developer. Docker build. Tapos, next is, asa na yun? Next is, next is, pwede na kayo mag-exercise. Nandoon sa LMS. Nandito. Ito sa hands-on activities, session 6, Ansible, CI/CD, and Docker microservice. Where is my slide? Ito, for exercise 1, Ansible configuration, deploy nyo Nginx. As a DevOps engineer, your task is to automate the installation and startup of Nginx using Ansible. So this exercise reinforces playbook structure, inventory usage, and idempotent configuration. You can download it here in your worksheet in LMS. Then exercise 2, CI/CD code, pipeline simulation code build. You will simulate part of a CI/CD pipeline by configuring AWS code build, pushing a sample application repo, and inspecting CloudWatch build logs. Then for exercise 3, Docker microservice deployment, compose stack, build and deploy a microservice architecture locally using a Docker compose. So this exercise validates container orchestration, image building, and networking. So you can download this one in our, ito na yan, dito, yung file nito. Ito, yung worksheet. Then, try nyo. Kasi kapag hindi nyo na-try yung mga exercise, hindi nyo rin natututunan. Baliwala lang. Yung in-enroll nyo. Basta na-share ko na yung idea about DevOps tools na tinatakal natin every session. Then, once completed, you can upload all the screenshots on our output assessment folder. Yep. Then, complete all exercises to understand how Ansible Docker works. Pwede na kayong mag-start. Ano po yun? Yes. Opo. Nandito. Kita niyo po ito. Yung LMS, if may LMS account kayo, nandito po sa assessment. Then, kung ano po ang name nyo. For example, ay kay Sir Alexis. Yan. Kompleto siya. Then, session 6, dun lang po i-submit yung mga screenshot. At kay Sir John, Yung mga sisipag mag-exercise yan. Exercise for session 6. Doon lang po. Then, share ko din kung nasa na yung animus na yun. Ito. Control C. Basta pag ginagawa niyo yung exercise, session 6, exercise 1 to 3, i-try nyo po sa end nyo. Kasi siya ay parang summary ng bawat session natin, yung mga exercises. Ayun lang po, then babalik ako mamaya. Yun lang. And for any question, just message me in Discord. Thank you po. Ay, pa-complete na lang po ng exercises, then pa-upload sa inyong specific folder for your outputs. Then, for the wrap-up, we have... Tinig po ako? Ayan, yan. For the wrap-up, we have... Ayun. Ansible, automation and configuration management. We learned how to understand the role of the control node, manage nodes, modules, and inventory, and then write YAML playbooks using task modules, variables, and handlers. So execute ad hoc commands for quick automation, then build a full playbook to configure Nginx if you do the exercises, then use debugging tools like syntax check, dash, trifle B, and dash dash check. Then, so, ang importance ni Ansible is to turn the infrastructure changes into repeatable, automated, and idempotent code. Then next we have the CI/CD with AWS, build, test, deploy automatically. So we walk through about AWS full CI/CD tooling. We know code commit, your source control system, and then code build, automated build, or test engine, then code deploy, deployment automation using EC2, ECS, or Lambda, and then code pipeline, wherein we orchestrate the entire pipeline. We also practice building or writing a build spec.yaml, then running builds and validating results using CloudWatch logs. So the key takeaway in here is CI/CD pipelines ensure that every change is validated, tested, and deployed consistently and automatically. Then the third one, we have the containers and microservices, wherein it is a modern application runtime. So we covered what containers are, and how they differ from VMs, the Docker engine, CLI images, layers, and registries, and then writing Docker files to build custom images, then using Docker Compose to run multi-container applications, then the differentiation of microservice versus monolithic architecture, then how Docker makes microservice possible, then then the key takeaway in the third one is containers provide consistency, portability, and isolation, making microservices scalable and easy to deploy. So uh, next session we will have the Docker again, and also containerization and exercises. Yan. Yun lang po, i-upload nyo po sa respective folder yung inyong um, completed exercises. Thank you po sa pag-attend. Have a nice weekend. Bye-bye. Thank you po. Opo. Bye-bye. Then if may mga tanong po kayo, iping nyo lang ako. Thank you po.